This is Islomania Part 2, a conversation between me, Tom Scharpling, and Nick Thorburn from Islands, discussing the stories behind the band and their albums. The new Islands album is called Islomania and will be released on June 11th on Royal Mountain Records. Yeah, so we talked about the first 4 Islands albums, and now there's the second 4 Islands albums.
The back half.
The back half. The back 4.
Yeah.
And I guess Asleep and a Forgetting was 2012 is when that left off.
Yep.
And, well, before we get into that, us having talked the way we talked and you having thought about these records maybe in a way you hadn't thought about over the last week between our 2 conversations about this, have there been certain thoughts or anything running through your mind after having kind of opened that door about the records or the catalog or whatever?
Yeah, I liked thinking of, you know, this idea of like the give and take, what we were talking about, you know, feeling what you were talking about, your insight into the record making of there being like only so much. Well, I'm sure you'd put it better, but just that idea of like at a certain point you have to stop, you know, taking in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Ski Mask sort of represents to me. It's like, it's kind of a culmination of the first 4 records. That's kind of how I sold it. It's got elements of all these ingredients that I've been, you know, if the first 4 is like apprenticeship, this now I'm like, okay, now I'm just, it's a cumulative, effect, I guess. This is just a product of all of the education I've been doing for the first 4 records.
That makes complete sense. And the 5th record being Ski Mask, which came out, do you know the date of the release of Ski Mask?
Not a clue. I blacked out for this period, October.
So this is you being David Bowie being like, I don't remember recording station to station.
I was in Beverly Hills, just completely off my head. No, I was not in Beverly Hills. It was 2013. I know that. I think it was the fall.
It was September 17th, 2013.
There you go. Autumnal.
Yes. And one of the many interesting things about this record is that when you look at the catalog, generally there's been a 2 to 3 year space between records. Like they usually one doesn't come hot on the heels of the next one, the previous one.
Yeah.
Except for this one.
Yeah.
This is a 1 year, you were back at it 1 year later. It's the follow up to Asleep and a Forgetting.
Yeah.
And Well, first of all, what were the circumstances of Ski Mask coming together?
Well, the dirty secret is that when we signed to Anti for Arm's Way, it was a 3-album deal, like most standard record contracts, and Asleep and a Forgetting was our last record for them. And it was kind of an uphill battle it felt, you know, like just getting the records out into people's homes or whatever. It felt like we were starting at a deficit because, like I said, they bought us out of our really bad contract in Canada. So they were starting deep in the red. So I think we were always kind of going uphill with it.
Okay.
And so by the last record, Asleep and a Forgetting, the head of Anti, Andy, had expressed how much he loved the record and how he felt like we'd finally kind of found our foothold or I had found my foothold as a writer or whatever with what Islands could be, which was a softer, more introspective, like sonically softer sounding record. But I had a feeling like, okay, look, in this business, it's kind of like a hoarder mentality, or like a doomsday prepper mentality, where it's like, I don't know when this bottom is going to fall out on this. I know that after Asleep and Forgetting, I have no contract. I don't know that they're going to put out this next record. So long way round, the dirty secret is that we recorded Ski Mask at the exact same time as Asleep and Forgetting. In a 3-week, it was insanity, but in 3 weeks, we 2 weeks of tracking live all the songs from Ski Mask and Asleep and Forgetting, except for 2 on Ski Mask I did after. We recorded at the same time as Asleep and Forgetting, 2 weeks to track and then a week to overdub. So I had secretly nested this record because I knew that if I'm out of a record deal, I still have the songs, I still want to keep the band going, but I don't have the budget to finance a record myself. Studios are expensive.
Sure.
Like, it's minimum to go into any studio. Really, it's minimum $600 a day, minimum. That's as low. And that's just a track. Then you have to think about, an engineer. You have to think about mixing. You have to think about mastering. And that's just the production of the album, not the manufacturing and not the promotion. So
that's bare bones. That's literally... There's no doing it without any of those elements.
Yeah, I suppose obviously you can do bedroom records and you can make home recordings, and that's gotten better and better over the years. But that wasn't, that I wasn't equipped to do that. I didn't have a home. At the time, I was literally without a home. I was staying at this generous benefactor's place and while I was recording, and so I didn't have anywhere to record other than this spot. So in secret, I made this extra set of songs that I knew were going to be I knew they were separate from Asleep and Forgetting. I knew conceptually that's the sad like breakup record. And then the other gear that I have, I tend to vacillate between sad and angry. So I was like, well, this is going to be my angry record.
Yes. Well, it certainly is. The angry record. Yeah.
Gonna take a ride, a holiday to fall away. Damn, it feels good to drive all the way in every lane. Do you know just what I do for you? Do you know just what I do for you?
But that's actually, it makes sense though to have you. It's a cauldron of emotions coming off of a major life change, like a breakup, like being uprooted.
Yep.
These are all the stressors that you just don't feel emotions. It's not just a straight line. People can talk about the stages of anything, but things don't move in even clean patterns. They say it's like being in a tornado is what it's like. You could be despondent one day, feel okay the next day, and then be furious the day after that. It's just all happening at the same time. Yeah. And I mean, you could get those feelings 5 minutes apart. So for you to be going through what you were going through, you could have it seems like you had the sad record and the anger record coursing through you simultaneously.
I contain multitudes, as Bob Dylan says.
Yes, you and Bob Dylan both contain multitudes. And well, so you went in to that knowing this is going to be a 2-for-1 thing out of necessity.
Yeah. But I didn't tell the label that, obviously, because they effectively paid, for the production of what became a self-released record.
Yeah, and it's not like Asleep and Forgetting paid any price because you were overextending yourself.
No,
not at all. I mean,
I had a surplus.
I had no idea that was the case, and the music does not say anything to the contrary. Nothing feels rushed or at a lesser level sonically or professionally, performance wise. None of that there's no giveaways to that version of things. So that's you can feel comfortable in that you could have gotten away with that secret forever.
Yeah. And maybe I should have taken that to my grave. I feel like sometimes some critiques of this record I've seen or saw online were just that Nick doesn't like know how to just edit. And sometimes I'm like, fuck, maybe they're right. Maybe I could have distilled this into one record. Maybe some other records similarly could have been more concentrated. But really, like a lot of Ski Mask was written before Vapors even. Like a lot of the songs like Winged Bee Drums, Of Corpse, Becoming the Gunship, Sad Middle, Shotgun Vision, like I played some of those songs live with the Arms Way band. Okay. So there was like, I don't know if you can hear it too, the like little bit of the Arms Way-ish bombastic. Obviously there wasn't the like orchestral component, but there was this like these multiple parts and like changes and stuff, tempo changes and stuff.
Well, you can definitely feel that kind of sliding back into the thing, but based on what you're saying, it was not sliding. It was not returning. No, it was the origins of the songs are like they predate maybe the streamlining that goes on with Asleep and a Forgetting or even Vapors. Like, yeah, because what is the song? Is Of Corpse? You said that one goes all the way back. Yeah, because there's chord changes, there's tempo, there's just key changes in it that are just like pretty reminiscent of maybe the first two records. Yeah. And well, that's interesting to know that's how that got. That's where that came from. But so when you're making that, going in, you knew which were the songs for Asleep and Forgetting and which were the songs for what was going to be Ski Mask.
Definitely.
Like that's just crystal clear.
There might have been one or two like variables where it's like, oh, Nil, for example, one of the songs on Ski Mask, I think I maybe at one point was like, that could be on Asleep and Forgetting. It's this, Nilsson. It was like, I'll try to write like a piano-y, like country, like saloon kind of drunken, depressed thing, and it could have sort of fallen on either side. But once the recording was done, it was easier to be like, okay, no, this fits into this column a little more easily.
I've been drifting, I've been drinking too much, been thinking I'm not thinking clearly enough. Are there two of me? It feels like there are two of me. One is my enemy and one sent to deliver me.
So obviously there's going to be
like ones that are on the bubble could tip either way.
Yeah, I mean they're island songs, so I guess they could ultimately, you could hear them on any. I try not to be too hard and fast with what belongs where, but those songs, like I said, those songs were old or they'd stuck around because I'd written them a while ago. I was like, well, they don't fit on this record, they don't fit on Vapors, that's for sure. I'm going to just hold on to them, and if they still feel relevant and make sense to me, then and obviously not every song that I have wrote in that time period survived, but the ones that I felt like still had a, I felt like I related to, I was like, well, there's still room for this for me in the world.
What is it like for songs that predate changes in your life do they suddenly make sense? Is there a thing where it's like, oh yeah, of course, now it's time for that because maybe I'm feeling different, or is it just straight up, it's a good song we haven't gotten to yet, let's use it?
It's probably the truth is probably that it's a little both. It's a little of both. It's
like it has a home now.
Yeah, definitely. It has a home now, and it's like, oh, this is still good. I still like identify with what I'm trying to do here, and it thematically it feels like it belongs with this collection. I try to think in conceptual terms with making a record. I think that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, it's not what everybody does, but
yeah.
I'm glad you do. And now, before we go further, the one thing that this brings up now is like, what is the songwriting process? I know that's such an all-encompassing thing. It's like, I'm sure every song can be different and come together in however it comes together. But just like generally, it's like, are you strumming first? Or are you writing words? Are you fitting words to chord change? Like what is a general version of your process?
I think it changes over time. I think a lot of those songs from Ski Mask was definitely strumming. It was definitely me with a guitar. And then I keep like a notebook. Now it's just a notes app, but at that point it was probably a notebook of just phrases, ideas, lyrics, couplets, and then I can see if they pair well and then build off of that. But it's just like an inciting thing. But I think they work sort of in concert, but like in parallel too. Like with Of Corpse, I guess, it might have just, I don't remember, but it feels like I look back at all this stuff and I'm like, this feels like I'm talking about someone else who's not here and I just have to speak on their behalf.
But isn't that interesting that that it's all you, but it's not you?
Yeah. Cellularly.
Yeah. So on a cellular level, we are supposed to regenerate how often? Like,
I think 7 years.
So you're literally not
maybe 17.
That physical person.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah. So I just have to kind of like, I think that's what, I don't want to like say the wrong thing or just in general, I don't want to like do a disservice to my past self. But yeah, I remember I was living in New York at that time and was like, whatever, just, yeah. But that was like, that song specifically is like death focused, but in life. Like, I think I based it off of this, the germ of that was whatever. I don't want to, it sounds pretentious to talk about, origins of songs, but
no, they've got to start somewhere. And for people that don't write songs, it is a complete mystery. It just seems like it's capturing some sort of magic. I feel that
I relate to that. It feels like a mystery to me too. It kind of just comes. And that sounds fanciful, but it just sort of, you just receive it. It sounds whatever. It sounds so bullshitty, but it is kind of true, especially for me, who I don't come at it with like a structure, like a technical,
because I can say for myself with writing and with comedy, and there's a huge part of me early on, I wanted to learn the mechanics of what made us a sketch work, what made a movie work that I liked. And I went to school for myself, not literally school, but I put myself through my own version of schooling where I was like, let's deconstruct these things and see what makes them work. And there were certain things that were very practically, that were very helpful on a practical level. But then I did feel myself not want to become a technician and not want to understand things past a certain point. And that's just for me. I like the idea that it's like, if somebody's like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I can tell you how to minimize some of these mistakes. And like, if you do that, that's going to maybe lead to that and that, which will be a mistake.
Right.
But I still don't have it down to some sort of science where I try to rule. You can't rule things out before. You don't want to be your own censor with things, and you don't want to be the person telling yourself that things aren't, that there's no magic in a thing. That I want to believe in the magic of making things still. And
well, how could you keep making things if you didn't? I mean,
well, there's so many
lifeless,
people. Well,
loveless.
We talked about people that show up and they show up like it's office hours and they sit at a desk and write songs.
Yes. And tinker. And there's a formulaic, whatever, there's like a schematic to it. But I think what you're doing is right. And I don't know if I did that enough. Maybe I should have done it more, but I like what you're saying, where you're tinkering, you're like learning, you're studying, and then you get a feel for it, you get a handle for it. And, you develop taste, you develop intuition, and then you let that guide you.
Yes.
And that's, you don't know how that plus that equals that, but you know that it does. And you know that if you switch a number out or a variable, the equation it's not an equivalent. And so you just sort of know, I don't know, is that osmosis? I don't know what that is. But
what are some times you can think that you've been truly surprised by what has come out of your brain?
Every time. I mean, not every time I feel like, well, like I've hit a thing, it always feels accidental. It always feels received as opposed to excavated. It doesn't feel like, like that song Creeper. It could go all the way back to Swan. Well, Swans is different, but like you could go back to the beginning, or you could even say like the newest album, the last song I wrote for the newest album, which we'll get into later. But like, it just starts happening, and it just kind of like, you're kind of just like keeping pace with it, like a jockey or something. I don't know. You're just like in this like sidecar, and you're just like, oh man, I'm not necessarily guiding this, but I'm like keeping pace with it. And I feel like there's a weird, I don't know. I'm not a spiritual person, but it feels like some weird communication that happens.
Sure. There's something else.
Yeah. If all it is just that I'm not completely dictating or in control of the outcome, that could be it. It could just be some kind of auto play. But when you hit that, I mean, I just wrote it. Yeah. I was just writing a song last week, and I was like, oh my God, this feels like I'm excited. Like I feel it, and it's so weird because there's only so many different in the space that I'm working. There's only it feels like there's a finite amount of melodies and chord progressions, but still I'm like, oh, this just kind of took me by surprise. And I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time, but, I don't know that. And I think that's like as a non-musician, you feel like, you can be surprised by things. I don't have like a complete understanding of what I'm doing.
It's so interesting because it's like one of the people who obviously is a hero to both of us is Bryant, who has always worked like strenuously to insist he's a bad musician.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, that is not his skill set.
Yeah.
At all. It's not proficiency with an instrument, but it's just the entirety of it is his proficiency.
There is obviously skill that's acquired through years of practice, but it's not what he uses to get to from A to B. It feels like he has the tools, but he doesn't let them define the thing. He's just, I don't know. Yeah. Just watching videos on YouTube of him, like even in like the early 2000s, fucking around with, Logic loops or whatever. He still has a way to make it fresh and like naive, you know?
That's that you just hit on something huge with him, and I think with all of us in a way, where it's just like, if you're trying to make stuff, you just want to make stuff, and there's something about that tenuous line between having a hold on it and having no hold on it. That's the exciting part, where it's just like, especially that you've directed things, you've put out a book of your illustrations and your cartoons. What was that? I don't want to insult
Penguins?
your, yeah.
Well, book of cartoons. Yeah.
But
yeah.
you always like, I don't want you to like hit me over the head with something because I said they were cartoons.
I am not precious about.
Good. I just
I
didn't
like
think you were.
cartoons. Yeah,
I do too. But it's like, but to go do the thing,
yeah.
you just have to jump in at some point. Like I felt when I was going to start directing music videos and other stuff, I waited till I felt like I was slightly over ready for it, but I still never went to school for it. And stuff was a huge mystery to me. That's still a huge mystery to me with this, but I just trust this compass, I guess, is ultimately all I'm bringing to the table to whatever I'm doing. Is that what it feels like for you? It's just like, even if you're like, this is not where you live, but you kind of know what's good and you know what's right and you know what's not right.
Yeah, I let that be my guide for sure. And it's scary, but it's a ride too. And I'll never go on a roller coaster, but I know that people don't go on roller coasters because they know where the scary part's going to be, that they want to be a little freaked by the loop-de-loop part. And you just have to like submit to it a little bit.
Yeah. The appeal to a roller coaster is
nothing.
You could die on this thing.
That's how I feel.
Just like, just the law of numbers, at some point, one of these has to go off the track and everybody dies.
Yeah.
And it's just the feeling of like, I know I'm not going to die on it, but there's still a chance I could die on this.
Even if it's simulated death, it's still simulating that fear. That's my apprehension. Is not that I think that the seats are going to fall off of the tracks or I'm going to slip out of although I did have an experience in the Netherlands on mushrooms on a very scary ride called Breakdance. And I thought my girlfriend and I thought we were going to slip out of the bar because it was, well, I definitely thought she was going to slip out because it was too low. But that was an experience. It was like, oh, we are going to maybe die here. This is maybe the most terrifying thing. But even in that moment, I was like, this is kind of beautiful. But that was the mushrooms probably. But I don't feel like I'm going to die necessarily. I just feel like I'm going to die. And what's the difference at a certain point?
Well, the difference is you get to walk away and stay alive.
But when fear grips you, I don't think about past, present, or future. I just think I think about present.
When you're in the moment, there is nothing but present.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
Sure. No, that you're not supposed to. I mean,
well, then why does anyone go? I don't get roller coasters.
I'm closer to you on this stuff than you might think, but I still just rally and go for it, because I do like having done it.
Maybe I'll get there.
Yeah, we'll head out to Knott's Berry Farm. We'll get you out there again.
Never.
Not going to hold jackets next time.
No.
So Yeah, it is an interesting thing for you to make stuff and and to not really have everything figured out, because that just feels like that's when it's dead. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you hear about, and I don't know if it's true or not, but you hear about like Rivers Cuomo would talk about just breaking down the math of songs and being able to almost just have you might as well just have some sort of AI thing just finish it for you, and you just come back and play it.
I think that guy got broken by bad reviews on his second album. I think he got freaked. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but it seems like ever since his follow-up record got bad reviews, and then years later was heralded as a underrated masterwork or whatever, he went into the AI-ness of it and just start like studying how do I not get yelled at, basically.
Yeah, I don't want them.
Daddy audience. I don't want daddy audience to yell at me.
Isn't it it is like, because that second album is so good.
Yeah.
But then after that, it was just like this, like, look, what you did with Arm's Way into Vapors was not that feels more of a focusing. Yeah. And you're taking a band that had 7 people in it and making it a band with 4 people in it. So just by the act of doing that, there's just going to be less things, because there's less people making music in the band. But with his thing, it felt like a retreat much more. And that there's something just so sad about that.
If he's happy with that, with like studying the mechanics of what makes a song, if that gives him joy, then power to him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ultimately then he becomes maybe less of an emotional songwriter and maybe more of a technical songwriter. And there's nothing wrong with technique unless it's just technique to me. Like that's when technique is a bad thing.
Yeah. And I think we've all, it's not hard to find the Yngwie Malmsteen, whatever, like there's 100 of those. We don't need, we want non-musicians too. We want the, like, the Mo Tuckers to come through a little bit.
Yeah.
Keeps things fresh. I don't know.
Absolutely. So with Ski Mask, you go in, we're going to do 2 for 1 here, but it felt clearly this is going to say something that Asleep and a Forgetting is not saying.
Yeah.
And what was that for you?
I don't know. Maybe when all the sadness, I think it's how people, maybe it's just a human emotional evolution where you stop feeling, maybe you're sad and then suddenly you're angry. And it's not that I was angry. The two emotions are not directly tied to the same event or series of events. It's not like now I'm angry about my new life and like the change in my life, but I think I just felt dark. I just wanted to like embrace. I wanted to go toward the darkness. I wanted to just see where that went.
Well, it's the darkest thing you've made. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
if you tell me, I don't know.
Well, I would say, having listened extensively to everything.
Yeah.
It really is the darkest thing. There's an uneasy quality running through so much of it. Well, because if you paired it up, you knew this was going to be that first of all, these songs are going to be more rock songs than what's on Asleep and a Forgetting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's more not necessarily not acoustic guitar acoustic, but it's much more stripped down and sparse. This is more of a rock band playing these songs.
Yeah.
There's more guitar up front on it than there would be on the previous album. But it just has a like I had told you before, it's just like there's like an ugly quality in spots where it's like can be slightly nauseous, like the keyboard sound on, is it Of Corpse that I'm thinking of?
So.
Where it's just so thick, and it just it has like that early 70s synthesizer feel to it, like analog
oscillators.
Yes.
You can vary the pitch so where it feels like it's not perfectly in tune, which it makes it kind of queasy and uneasy.
And lyrically, it's a very violent record. Shotguns,
shotgun vision,
ski masks,
yes,
cannonballs, gunships, It's just very feces, urine. It's just like it's you're showing the underbelly. It's like an underbelly kind of that you're showing with a lot of it.
Yeah, it's ugly. The cover too, obviously.
And the cover is from what movie?
Attack of the Ozone Mutants from Outer Space or something. This like Texas, this late 80s Texas low budget, no budget horror movie. It was this image that was floating on the internet, and I found it, and then I wanted to use it, and I tracked down, I found what it was. I think I like reverse image searched it and found that it was from a film, an 80s film. I think it's Ozone Attack of the Redneck Mutants, I think is what it's called. And so it was when the ozone layer was like hot. It was like a buzzy kind of thing. This idea that the ozone layer there was a hole in the ozone layer. It was turning us all into rednecks or something. But I found the director and I like appealed to him. I was like, hey, I love this still image and I'd love to. And so I bought the DVD, not the DVD. I think it was VHS. I found like an old copy of it and transferred it and got the still image that I loved from this thing. And it's just this, to me, it looks like there's a galaxy. Like it's this like latexy, oily, it's obviously like an oil spill kind of thing, but it has this shine against the, whatever lights they had in the camera. And, it feels almost like it's like outer space or something.
Absolutely. It's just something that you're not sure exactly what you're looking at. It took me the longest time to really focus even in on like the mouth.
Yeah, the tongue, that weird tongue. Nothing makes sense with it. It's like that tongue is shaped like a triangle and it's melting and he's melting, but it feels like outer space. I don't know. It feels like deep. It feels like it's going deep into another realm or something. So I like. And
when you saw that, you were like, I
knew right away.
This will line right up with these.
Yeah, I was like, this is the cover. It has to be, no question.
So obviously it's the same lineup. That is the
same lineup as as Asleep and Forgetting. Luke Laurent on drums and Evan and Jordy.
And this is the final record for Luke.
Yeah. Okay. Luke, we had a big year off, and and he had just was getting other offers and jobs, and it was just kind of like came, but he did it. He did it. He did his thing. He came and knocked it out on 2 records. So
around this point, you also had done a short run of Unicorns shows.
God, yeah, the following year.
Okay. And what was it? We'll talk about that after we finish with this one then, because I wasn't sure when that happened in terms of relation to the record.
Yeah, so if Ski Mask came out September 2013, those reunion shows were July or August 2014.
Okay.
So after the cycle of touring, we didn't tour that much on Ski Mask. We were putting it out. We were putting out the record ourselves, and I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to put out a record. So it definitely didn't have a proper release overseas. So we didn't go back to Europe or anything. And, it just kind of sputtered a little bit. So it felt like, time for a break.
Mm-hmm. And what was the reaction generally to Ski Mask?
It was fine, I think. We did. I don't know. Maybe we did. No, we did go to Europe. But we toured across Canada. We went to Europe and it was kind of a bust, actually, because we didn't have a good promotional support system. But we toured across Canada. It was really fun. And by that point, we had Adam in the band for this for the promotion of this record, Adam Halfordy, who was connected through a friend of a friend and is still with the band and is like really like the heart and soul of it for me. Like, just like, but,
and that became the lineup that you've had ever since.
Yeah, this is which is the longest, obviously. It's been now 7.5 years, which was the duration of the band up until that point. So
when you're putting records together, do you, and you're sequencing things, you've done a lot of sequencing to where the final song seems to be some sort of message in a way where you're saying, like on this Wingbeat Drums, you say, I'm not going to make a point of reading your own lyrics back at you, but
no, I
like,
love it.
I'm sick of laying down, sick of playing dead, sick of being sick, think I'm sick in the head. I mean, it really is like you're saying, I can't do this anymore. And then the next two records, which we're going to talk about in a minute, are you end both of those basically saying goodbye.
All grown up in the dark ages when I heard you cry, born at the wrong time. You wanna dig a hole, you don't wanna stay. You say, I know a way, I know a way.
I love to say goodbye. Yeah, it's true. And the album, the album opens, Ski Mask also opens, Waveforms, it opens with like, it's like a kiss off too. It's like, this is it. I'm not going to write another word after today.
Yeah.
This is the kind of the end. Maybe I need that conflict. Like, I think I'm done. I think I need to be like, because what else? I don't know. If you write a perfect record, there's no need to continue. If you write a perfect movie or write a perfect book, you don't need to repeat. You've done it. And I think that's also the benefit in that, of looking back on all these records and be like, oh, there's flaws. I'm not done here. I know how to like do this better next time. And that's why I genuinely do feel like I'm making a better record every time. And until I do that, I guess I'm just going to keep having that push and pull. Like, I'm done. I hate this. I'm back. I'm done. I'm back.
It's
abusive is what it is.
All you do is kind of bang your own head against the wall.
Yeah, I know.
And then you're like, why does somebody keep shoving my head into that wall? And then you look and you're the only one in the room. Yeah. That's what it feels like for me. Yep. It's, it is interesting because like Waveforms, it almost seems like is saying like, I'm done and I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you have kind of like the return of some version of like, what would you call that? Like some sort of like faux tropical thing running.
True, with the marimba. I know,
Yeah.
it's all like very sarcastic. Anytime now that you hear anything vaguely islandy in my music, it is pointedly sarcastic and a fuck you.
Because I was wondering especially after you said that the song on Arm's Way,
J'aime vous voir
Yes.
quitter.
yeah, the way you used it on that. And
Yeah.
was that the same thing with waveforms?
I think so. It was like, oh, this is like, oh, the waveforms. Obviously, waveforms in an audio file. Just a double entendre
Yeah.
action going on. But but yeah, it was definitely yeah, Jordy played that. It was on the Mellotron, the marimba, on a real Mellotron at King Size in Glassell Park. We recorded that, and it was like, let's make this feel like you're on the beach. Which when you're on the beach, you're supposed to feel free. You're supposed to feel relaxed, and you see the open ocean. You never see what's underneath, all the trouble that awaits you underneath. So
Sure. Yeah.
So I was going for the underneath part.
Yes. This record is a lot of the underneath. And you've mentioned you also have the that Nilsson was an influence on some of the stuff, because you have that tack piano feel
Yeah.
running through a couple songs on it.
Yeah.
The Death Drive has like the
Yeah.
double time kind of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that
Good.
Nilsson?
Yeah, for sure. I was new to LA, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm like it's like my lost weekend. It's like my lost decade.
Yeah. Get you over at the Troubadour with a maxi pad.
Yeah, exactly.
Taped to your head.
With Kotex or whatever. Creep. With a bunch of creeps at the Smothers Brothers show.
Yeah. Well, that would be a real treat. You're one of the Smothers Brothers, and then John Lennon and
Living legend John Lennon and
Yeah.
his drunk buddy.
they're hammered and ruining your show.
Yeah. That would go over well this in 2021.
No, that would have been the end of John Lennon. So Ski Mask comes out 2013. Then you go and do the seemingly undoable, which is to do some more unicorn stuff, which it didn't seem like it was necessarily. And this is when we became friends, by the way.
Yeah.
This is the period, because I remember you
Sent you a death threat.
sent me a death threat. I blocked you on Twitter.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We're open.
Thought
It was a
funny.
joke.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny at the time.
But you just have to realize you're not the only one sending
I'm so
me things
sorry.
like that.
It
It's
was
okay.
not a clear-brained idea.
Please,
But I was
I've been on
I
both
was
sides of those.
So I was in New York, and my downstairs neighbor, my superintendent Drew, was telling me about the best show and like, oh, you got to listen. And Kate and I were living upstairs, and we were like, oh, this is awesome. And we would I think we would go down to his on Tuesday, like put on basketball or baseball or whatever, and just like listen and hang out and drink beers. And it was nice. And then when I left New York, I was in a really dark place, but yeah, and it kind of like I feel like you were in a bit of a dark place. I don't want to presume, but
2010, would it have been around 2010?
yeah, it was the fall of 2010,
That's when
October-ish.
I took a break from Best Show for a month or two.
Yeah.
Around that point, because I was completely fried, and it would have been October. Yeah, it was October 2010.
Yeah, that's when I really locked in, where I was like, okay, I'm never missing an episode of this.
Yeah, no,
this is my ballast,
Well, that's very kind.
and I haven't since.
It was, yeah, because then because you came up to the studio toward the end of me on WFMU,
Yeah.
and we just hung out. That would have been 2013.
That's right.
And you were talking about how these, I guess you were talking about the shows coming up at that point, right?
Okay,
does
maybe.
that track?
That makes sense. That would make sense.
Okay.
That would make
Something
sense.
like that, because so what was that like for you to be 5 albums in now and building this thing that has had so many twists and turns, but all in the service of kind of escaping this one album that seemed to cast this shadow,
haunting me.
And what was it like to go take a step toward that instead of to keep stepping away from it?
It was okay. Honestly, at that point, I was okay with it because I'd put the work in. I remember feeling after the first Islands album came out, I started working on the Human Highway record with Jim. And I started feeling like, oh, am I the one and done guy that, like, even though I knew I was going to make another Islands record, I didn't want this to be this perception that, oh, this guy just can't commit. He just can't make a record, make a go of like a body of work. He just has to keep burning things down, because I never wanted to burn the unicorns down. I was ready to make a go of,
just see where that goes for whatever its full lifespan.
I could have done it. I could have. That wasn't up to me ultimately. And so coming back to it was kind of like, God, can we get our flowers? Like we put the work in. We said no to every single licensing thing, every Adidas commercial, every Ford Focus, even though not Ford Focus, Toyota, whatever the car was, we did our first tour across country with, where we like slept in it. It was like a Toyota. It was a hatchback. It was like, whoa, they want to license our song and pay us. Like, this feels like symbolic, but, we were saying no to stuff. At a certain point, I started saying yes, but, 2 yeses do not outweigh 1 no when it comes to a band. So, there was things like, like the last episode of the OC, like who knows if we'd said yes to all this stuff, what the tail of that would have meant. But so we said no to a bunch of stuff. And finally, like, we're coming around on the 10-year anniversary of our breakup, not even which seemed more fitting. It's like the death. What's the 10-year anniversary of our death? And, we wanted to do some shows, and then Arcade Fire were like, hey, wouldn't it be funny? Because they opened for us back in the day on their first tour. So like, wouldn't it be funny if you opened for us? So funny, so hilarious.
It's a really funny
That's
joke.
Hilarious. I just laughed. I laughed all the way to the bank, which was not open. The whole thing was kind of miserable, to be honest. I hated it and didn't feel good. They didn't move their equipment off the stage. Like, they gave us like a postage stamp at the front of the stage. We couldn't even line up in like a proper formation. We had to be all like in a line on stage. It's like, this doesn't feel right. And we played like at doors basically, because even though we were the second on the bill, I don't want to sound like sour grapes, but fuck it. It doesn't matter. It was just a bummer experience. We went first because we were on the main stage. There was Dan Deacon in the middle in the round. So even though he was first on the bill, he went second. So we had these, it was like our big like comeback, not comeback, but like gratitude thing. And we didn't even get to cash in on that properly. Mm-hmm. So it really like, man, it put a bad taste in my mouth. And I was paying I wanted there to be some production, and there was a dispute about that. So I was basically paying for a lot of that, and it was an uphill climb. So that when that ended, we did one of our own shows in Montreal, which was incredible. It just felt like we played this big show. It was our show. Every song felt like it was something I'll remember for the rest of my life. Every song felt like it was like the biggest hit ever. Like every little, we were just playing the album because that's all we had.
Sure.
But it felt it was worthwhile. It made it all worthwhile. But ultimately it was not sustainable, and we couldn't keep going, even though I would have gladly kept going. I mean, It wasn't like I wanted to end Islands, but I thought, okay, these two things can coexist. There can be some.
And you've kept multiple balls in the multiple
I love
plates
multiple
spinning.
balls. Yeah.
Yeah, multiple plates, multiple balls, all of them.
Multi-ball. That's my favorite.
It's the best thing that happened in a pinball.
I get a little stressed when they're all coming down, but
Sure.
you
Who
have to hit
doesn't?
them all.
That's the point of it. You're supposed to feel a little stressed. It's a heightened thing. I'm not going to be that guy, but it's like, do you feel like, is the door on anything unicorns, is that just closed till the end of time now? Does that feel like you tried it, you did it?
Time has a funny way of healing all those wounds. Who knows? Who knows? I would never say no. I still feel. I feel more than ever. I feel a kinship to that history in a way that in the beginning of Islands, I was like, don't mention, I'll kick you out of the show if you even invoke my old band, or in interviews if it came up. Like I told my publicist, they can't mention it. Like off the table is mentioning my past. Like this is a new thing, new band. I've softened into like, okay, this is a part of my history. Like I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna fight it, but I'm not gonna run towards it either. So
Well, there's a difference. That seems to be the difference, is when you make peace with your past, it doesn't mean you have to live in it, but you can accept it.
I love that.
And that is I feel, not to tip the big reveal here, but these 4 records, well, you look at it, the 5, if you go from Asleep and Forgetting is like a very sad record.
Yep.
Ski Mask, very, very angry, uneasy record. Then the Taste and Should I Remain Here at Sea. Did I get that right?
You did.
There's such an acceptance to those records. Like those records seem to just be about acceptance but ultimately dying in a way, because they both say goodbye at the end of them.
Right. I like that. It's grace. That's kind of my favorite.
New record is like a rebirth.
Exactly. God, that's good. Where were you when I was writing the fucking bio?
Oh, you knew where it was. But does that track for you?
That's as better than I could ever put it. It does feel like I had to get through. I was still going through it. And I think with Taste and Should I Remain Here at Sea, I was like clawing out. And there was an amount of grace, which I love. The only thing I think I like from is it Christianity? I don't know. I love the concept of grace. It's a good sounds good.
Yeah. And
I just felt, I felt like I was accepting it, but I was so, by the end, the end of Should I Remain Here at Sea, which again, we recorded Taste and Should I Remain Here at Sea at the same time. These were they were self-released records with a label I'd set up. And I knew there was there were two like contrasting things. There was like the live acoustic record and the more like synthy. Two things I like to be like live and a little more rock, and then I like to be a little more studio synthy. So it was like, oh, let's just put both out on the same day, and they'll be different, but we're going to record them at the same time because it's cheaper. And we did it again. We did it in like 3 weeks. It was, it's all you're doing with your day. You wake up, you go to the studio. But the Should I Remain Here at Sea, the like counterpoint to Taste, the chaser or whatever was more live. So we'd recorded it all live together in the room, and some songs, Christmas Tree and Hawaii, singing was live too. So like everything you hear is like that was all recorded at once, which no one that's very sort of uncommon these days for
the vocals, definitely.
Yeah.
Like a little wave left to the water, rolls along like nothing is the matter, doesn't make a sound.
but for you can feel it makes sense that you guys were playing as a unit in the recording of it, because that it definitely has that feel, and it's like there is not actual makes it sound like it's something you never had, but there's so much guitar interplay on that record.
Yeah, I was listening to it today in advance of this, and especially Should I Remain Here at Sea, the more guitar based record. Jordy is such a fun guitar player, and like I said, those guys just grew up. They had a folk musician father, so music was running through them from a young age. But he has such a great. It's so fun to do the guitar interplay, because I have it's fine. I'm not gonna self-deprecate, but it's a little. I'm coming from behind a little bit with it. So
well, sure. So let's talk about your guitar playing. Actually, this is a good time, as good a time as any.
Busted.
No, it's. Well, first of all, do you know the date that the two records came out? Let's see if you can remember. Taste.
May. I think it was May. Was it May 8th? 2016?
May 13th.
Okay.
2016. You're 5 days off.
Story of my life.
So, you had two records that came out on the same day.
Yeah.
This is there's a 2.5 year gap between the previous album and this, and in that gap you had the Unicorns. You did Unicorn shows. You put a solo album out.
Yep.
The Nick Diamond's album.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorites.
Oh, and wow, thanks.
What was the thinking behind you doing that versus making that stuff fit with Islands?
I don't know. I did it all here. I did it in my kitchen.
Okay.
My little home studio. It's in my kitchen.
And that's City of Quartz.
City of Quartz, yeah, which is a book I honestly didn't even finish reading because it's very dense, but it's a book about LA, the history of LA and the corruption of the LA police force. I actually think it came out before Daryl Gates, but anyway, it's about the history of Los Angeles and the corruption in the city. But it also is the city that I lived in, and I was like, that's a nice. I make diamonds. It's the city of quartz, you know. It just,
yeah.
Which was a name I wasn't even actively using anymore under records. I was Nick Thorburn, but I like to be able to have this as an alias. But I wasn't sure. I was just making it. It was some stuff was, when I was writing, I was like, maybe this will be Unicorns songs for another Unicorns record. Never happened. I wasn't sure if it was demos or if it was just home recordings. It just kind of happened, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. Just feels good to just work. And I hadn't been into a studio. 2011 was when we made Ski Mask, because it was at the same time as Asleep and Forgetting. We recorded those records February 2011. They didn't come out till a year later. Okay. And so by the time we got into the studio for Taste and Should I Remain Here at Sea, it was 2015. It was, it had been 4 years since I'd been into a studio. So I was feeling like, God, I'm not a real musician. I haven't even been into a proper studio in 4 years. So that was a big, exciting thing to be back in with an engineer and a board and like in a tracking in the live room and doing overdubs. It was like, this is, even though I could potentially do this at home, it's so much more, it just feels it. I just like the structure of like the work. Like you have a start time, you have an end time. It's usually 12 hours if your budget is, if you're strapped. And it was just nice to be back.
Yeah. So what else had happened project wise? Is there anything else that was between Ski Mask and the 2 records.
Oh yeah, well, Serial, the
that's right, of
Serial
course, yes.
theme song.
You did the score for
Yeah,
the
yep, and that was
hit
like
podcast.
probably the biggest thing I've ever done. Although it took me an hour, and I didn't think twice about it. It was just like, it was a friend of a friend who worked at. It was a friend who worked at I don't want to say Democracy Now, who worked at This American Life, and just recommended me, and I did it in a weekend. Did a bunch of music, bed music, and I did the theme song. Didn't think twice. It was like gone. I didn't think it was just like on to the next, and then it became this like cultural thing and spoofed on
like
SNL.
SNL had it.
Portland
That was-
Trailblazers were playing it when calls were contested and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it was this funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. I was like, cool. I feel like I'm just riding along. I'm sidecar on this. I never felt like I'm getting my due. I'm just like, oh, I'm just caught up in the wind of this, which that's fine.
Absolutely. No, they all don't have to be you sawing off the top of your head and pouring your brains out on the table and just sorting through everything that your deepest, darkest stuff. You can just do things also.
Still figuring that out. Yeah.
But so you had that, and
then the Unicorns just really just turfed out. And so it was like, okay, what else have I, and it's not like I write for a record. I'm just kind of writing throughout the day, throughout the month or year. So I was just building a collection of songs. And then when I started to think about the next Islands record, I was like, well, I've done the breakup record. I've done the, bombastic orchestral record. I've done the synth record. I've done the Afro pop record. What about the 2 records at once record?
the Use Your Illusion.
Yeah.
It was Use Your Illusion. It was Lucky Town and Human Touch Time.
Yes. Yeah.
So the thinking was you saw 2 records in your head. You had been away for long enough that you wanted to get in the studio and do as much as you could.
Yeah, I'd built up a collection of songs, and I knew that some were going to be more guitar based and some were going to be more synth and drum machine based. And so I knew it was so easy to just, that was a really clear divide.
And you just knew construction wise with the songs, this one's this, that one's that, like a range. There were no surprises in terms of, well, let's try this as a band or.
No, maybe I should have been more open to that, but I knew exactly. I was like, this has to be the Should I Remain Here at Sea record. This has to like be the angry record that ends, which ends with the saddest song I've ever wrote, but which I could barely get through when.
Which one? At Sea?
Yeah, I actually, there's like a, I didn't.
No, it's a devastating song.
Yeah, it hurt. That one hurt me. I'd learned sad things on that day. And so it wasn't like, I'm going to get sad for this. It was just like, oh no. Yeah. I'm accessing something sad.
The wrong unsteady metal, guided through trouble, rolls through the wave. The way that this ship moves, bound for deep water, it's bound to break.
It's funny because that song, on the surface, it reminds me of the final song on ABBA's Arrival, which is the song Arrival, which is almost a wordless song, but it actually just, it always reminded me of that because it's the final song on a record filled with catchy songs, but then there's this very kind of sad this kind of very sad farewell at the end of the record.
It's funny that song's called Arrival, which feels like the opposite. I was answering the question of the album being like, no, I'm going to remain at sea, which was a reference to the first album, Return to the Sea. It was like, you know, I had Jim Guthrie, who played on the first record, sing on harmonies on that final song. And it was just like, okay, I'm going out to sea. And I was sort of basing it off this sea shanty kind of thing by this guy Cyril Tawney called The Gray Funnel Line. Just like a lonely sailor, basically, who's adrift.
and your knowledge and fascination of the sea comes from, a lot of it comes from where you grew up.
Yeah, right.
So because you grew up with the ocean as your backdrop.
Mm-hmm. But not in like a Montauk-y, Hamptonsy way.
No, in a very
just like fishing town. Yeah,
like a very practical
Manchester
real
by the
life.
sea.
Sure, like Manchester by the, yes. But it's just like
the movie.
You growing up in Canada in the Northeast province. How do you describe? How would I describe?
The west, Pacific Northwest,
Northwest province,
and
yes.
maybe, I don't know. We don't really say north, I guess, but we don't say southwest either. But it is just West Coast.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying what it would be on the map.
Right.
Everything's north to somebody in the United States.
But I was on the east coast of Vancouver Island, which is so it's there's a little channel of water, but it's not the open ocean.
Okay.
It's still wavy.
Well, what did all of that do for you as a kid?
I don't know. And we moved when I was a kid up north to a town called Prince Rupert that was sort of near Alaska. It was quite far north. It was near the like southern little sliver of Alaska. That was open ocean. And my dad worked on the water. So he was always out on the water and would take me out sometimes. And I don't know that I was consciously like, oh, I'm writing about the ocean, but I don't know. It's nice to see the horizon line. It's nice to see things open up. It's nice to see things go on forever. I don't know, that like it's a peaceful feeling. I think I felt a lot of peace.
Does that impact how you see the world? Because I can just say for myself personally, it's like growing up in New Jersey, it's like I just see so much of the world as just whatever the road is for it. And you can see with like Bruce Springsteen clearly thought a lot about roads.
Right.
And it just like hangs over your head. It's just, it's a forced perspective on things. It's just like the world is a collection of roads.
Right.
And
whereas Springsteen sees a turnpike, I see a pike.
You see a pike swimming by. Yes.
I guess I'm I wasn't like consciously like, well, this is because the Unicorns wasn't I don't think it was really Maritime based. I don't know. It just happened. And this is how I work, I guess. And it'll work and it won't, because I don't feel like I have control of it, but it just sort of, I just sort of let the subconscious go, you know? So it's sometimes going to be.
Well, do you find the ocean scary? Do you find it comforting?
I find it the best. I think it's sick that I live in LA and I never go to the ocean. LA is so close to being, beachy, but you see those old movies like whatever, White Men Can't Jump and Heat or whatever, I don't know, Point Break.
Sure.
That seems so LA, but then you come here and you're like, oh no,
and you never get there.
You never really go there unless you really make the effort or live in Venice.
I mean, I did spend a lot of time going to the Jersey Shore, and not for social purposes necessarily. I would go at night and I would go off season all the time.
How far was it from your place?
It's 45 minutes
Oh,
away
wow.
just to be at Point
Just take a
Pleasant
drive.
or Asbury Park, and you could see, and it's just amazing that it's the end of it's like you're literally standing at the edge of like there's people in the United States that never reach the edge of the United States, for example. And it's just like, it's right there. It's like, oh no, it stops here. And then it just goes for hundreds of miles.
But you can't traverse
not
without a boat.
Exactly. And it's just so all encompassing. And it's so strong. And having gone through hurricanes in New Jersey, you realize how violent it is and how beautiful it is.
Right.
And it's not surprising that it resonates so much with everything, is so much through your work. So when you called the album, we'll start with this of the two. We'll start with Should I Remain Here at Sea. You looked at it as an answer to the title of the first record.
Yeah, and I was really like, okay, I don't even know if I was consciously saying this is it. This is like the full circle. I got nothing left. But I definitely felt that way after touring the record. I was like, this seems like a perfectly fine place to stop.
Okay, because ultimately the for people who don't know, the story is going to be that these are the last two records for almost 5 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah. Then after that, I was like, I got nothing left.
But going into it, you did not necessarily feel that way. Like, we're going to do these two at the same time, and then
No, not really. No, I wasn't like this. This is the epitaph or whatever.
So that kind of revealed itself after the records and during the touring.
Yeah, the last tour, I was like, whoa, I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because it was it was right before the election, and it was all through the middle of the U.S. and it was just like, it was just that wasn't what was negative about it. But I remember getting into one altercation with a woman putting up a sign at a gas station, like a pro-life sign, getting into like an argument with her. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the van was like, get back in the van. Let's go. I was like, no, I need to talk to this person. She's like, he just loves family. He just loves family. I was like, he doesn't. He's a bad man.
Yeah. So when you're doing this record, this is the guitar record comparatively.
Should I Remain Here at Sea? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, it really just does feel like the playing is it's so clean and focused and locked in, and you guys are playing like a unit. So it's not surprising to hear the way you recorded the record, because that really is such a big part of what makes it work.
And it was really like, okay, we have this studio time. I have these songs. Some are developed, and a few are actually, I've been with these guys for years, and they're awesome musicians, and I would like them to finish writing these songs with me. It was the first time I'd done that. The first time I'd like given up a little bit of ownership. And so we went to Toronto, where we recorded them in Toronto, and we went a few weeks early and got a rehearsal studio, a rehearsal space. And every day for 2 weeks, we rehearsed. We tightened. We just played. And then some of them we finished together, and it was a collaborative thing. And it was those were the songs that happened to be the focus tracks that were like, these are the songs that we're all writing together. So it was encouraging that, like, oh yeah, this doesn't have to just be like from my brain. It can be shared. Mm-hmm. You know.
There's a car driving by. It's the fear rolling in disguise. Look down, you think it's over there now.
and with the with that, like that unit, it just feels like there's a spirit to it. Like it feels more fun, and it feels like it feels slightly more unburdened in a way. It seems like you're actually having a good time making it, and it comes across.
That's cool. I think we were having a good time. Yeah, I think for the most part, it was just, like I said, it'd been 4 years since we've been in the studio. It was Adam's first time with us in the studio. And so we were just, you know, enjoying it. It was really fun. And Evan and I were kind of producing, I guess, like manning the ship a little bit. Because at that point we weren't bringing in outside producers. And so we were just left to our own devices, our own label. It was very like, you know, it was, you need a little bit of guidance. So it was an experiment in that, but Evan was really good too, to be like involved in creative, like overall decisions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And with the, well, is there, it sounds like there's tap dancing on the record.
Yep.
On Stop Me Now.
Yeah.
Stop me now. Stop me now. Stop me now.
So that was, that's my angry song. But sometimes angry can be funny.
But that's the thing. It sounds like you're having fun even with the pointed stuff.
Yeah.
There's like it's like you're leaning into your ability to have a wit.
Yeah.
Rather than anger
what's more
overshadow.
carefree? Tap dancing seems like the most carefree act. It's like your shoes are musical. Like you literally don't have a care in the world. And so, yeah, we went on Craigslist. I went on Craigslist and like posted, looking for a tap dancer, and this really sweet guy came, and I think it was the only guest other than Jim on the other, on At Sea. That was the only guest we had, was this random guy. He brought his tap shoes in. We just played the song for him, put the sheet down, the little metal sheet, and he just felt it.
It's amazing. It's just, it's so unexpected, and makes you don't realize how close tap dancing is to hand claps on a record in a way.
Right.
Like it's just kind of awesome.
Kind of awesome, kind of annoying. I think I wanted the narrative to be like, I sang this song and then I truly don't give a fuck. So I'm just going to dance it out like Christopher Walken in a Fatboy Slim video or something.
Yeah. Now we'll talk about the guitar playing.
Uh-oh.
You are
a fraud.
You've always, see, this is what I was going to say. You've always put down your guitar playing to me whenever I've brought it up. Mm-hmm. Well, what is your relation to the guitar? Like what do you see a guitar as, and who were the people you tried to be like before you found you being you?
That's the thing. I didn't try to be, and that's partially why I feel like an imposter is, you know, you go to a party or to a like group of people and like, oh, there's an acoustic guitar. Oh, what do you know? Like what Kink songs can you play? What Bowie, what Beatles? And, I don't know any song. I never went about it like learning, and maybe I'm just deeply lazy and it's like, oh, you just don't want to like learn these basic chord progressions. I just instead fucked around and like, I didn't even know what the chords were. And I don't want to self-mythologize too much, but I was just like, oh, I'll put my hands here. What sounds good? What sounds good? These are not. So the early like Unicorns and First Islands record, like they're not like proper chords necessarily. I just put my fingers where it sounded good. And I didn't know, oh, that's a G sharp. I just was like, well, that sounds good here. And I'll just find what sounds good there. So I don't have like I can't like shred, you know?
Sure. Was there somebody whose playing you idolized? And even if you were not going to replicate them, there's some sort of spiritual connection to it? And if there's not, there's not.
Maybe there's not.
Because again, go back to the Eno thing. It's just like, he's like, I really can't play guitar.
Yeah.
And if you think I'm bad at guitar, you should, then he starts playing clarinet on things. He's just like, makes my guitar playing sound better. And but it's in the goal is not to be like, well, the record's not so hot, but I'm a really good guitar player. It's like the goal is to be just like whatever it took to put together a record.
Yeah, and if you're curious, and if you're exploratory, and I think that's what he does. He explores, and he I guess that's why he quit Roxy Music. He's like, we can't have two non-musicians in the band talking about Brian Ferry. So maybe there's a limit to non-musicianship, but with Alden, like that was my first, we started the Unicorns after I was in high school, but we started playing music. We started bands together when we were both in high school. So that was who, he was like, oh, do you play guitar? Do you want to come jam? And I was like, yeah, I play guitar. Totally. And I went over to his place and didn't have a guitar. And I was like, yeah, I don't actually play guitar. I don't have a guitar. I don't know how to play guitar. It's like, oh, that's fine. You can just sing. And that's kind of where it went. But he was, definitely a big inspiration in just like being exposed to it. And then obviously like, well, Jane's Addiction was a big band for me in high school, and Bauhaus and Blonde Redhead later. So
if you push came to shove, you could not play like here we go. I could fuck around and find it, but I couldn't just like pull out that riff. Sure.
But what a riff.
That's a pretty good riff.
Look, I do hate, there's a thing that happens now where I call it, or I'm going to call it shit washing, where it's like people are, suddenly everyone's like, oh, I'm covering Green Day. I'm covering Blink-182. This was like my first important band, this first important record. It's like, you don't have to still like that shit. Like the first concert I ever saw was Green Day at Lollapalooza 94, and I loved that first record, but I will never listen to it now. I don't want to memorialize it and say that it's great, but that song Stop by Jane's Addiction, I think they're embarrassing now in retrospect. I think they're kind of coming around. It's kind of starting to be less cheesy, but when I was 16 or 15 or whatever, 14 maybe, I don't know, but I loved that. And the guitar playing is so cheesy, but so cheesy, like just phaser and wah-wah and endless noodling. And I hate noodling. I really do, but I loved it.
Yeah, no,
I'm not going to cover it though.
No. So don't yell out stop. Well, unless they're saying to stop.
Yeah. Well, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
In which case I will.
So on this album, Right to Be Misbegotten, it's like, that's one of the death obsessed songs, but it seems like you're mentioning dying in it, and it's like, but does dying always mean dying for you? No, it's just dying can be
Could
just
be a
like
change.
Yeah,
could be good.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that I mentioned dying in that.
I woke up late, day I died, it's my right, 1,000 pounds of light.
Well, there was that German law, the right to be forgotten, where it was like these people that just wanted to, it became like a thing that went into law in Germany, where it was like, you have a right to be removed from the internet, every trace of you. If you apply, if you submit, you can have every mention of you scrubbed from the internet and be vanished. And so that was like the thing. And then it was like, well, how do I make this more self-deprecating.
Sure. And yeah, no, it's just because you can tell that dying is a relative concept through so much of this
it's a theme. It's an idea, like ghosts are, I guess. They're not always referring to literal ghosts. It's just a concept of
So that's the more rock album, and then Taste is the more electronic album.
Yeah.
Like, so who, if, we talked about guitar stuff, who were the people in terms of that kind of music that made you like that? Because it's like, when you think about, more so for myself, because I'm older, it's like you either were in a band that played like a band that would make Taste, or you were in a band that would make Should I Remain Here at Sea.
Right.
Like, you kind of didn't do both.
Right.
Geometry, there's something in the light, torn asunder, and you wonder why it don't work right. Turn to face it, resist the narcotic embrace, to taste, to fall away without a trace.
So I guess I was wondering what the concept of a band, does that mean anything for what a band is supposed to be or not supposed to be?
No, I don't think so. I think
I mean, does it just not go any further past what is the right thing to do?
yeah, I guess not. I guess it doesn't.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I think it was just I don't know. It was like, how do I merge these two things that I like arpeggiated synths and like pop song structures and stuff,
And who were the people you like in that like in electronic music?
I mean,
Like, who cast a shadow on this record?
I think I was starting to like get into Tangerine Dream. I think Rat-a-tat were a big influence for me in general, like the guitar, marrying guitar and kind of classical, sort of Baroque structures with like real synthy, dance music. I loved that.
Okay. But you're also, you say you're not really a keyboard player or a piano player.
I can do keyboards, I guess. I'm not much of a
proper piano
player.
Sure.
I mean, on Asleep and Forgetting, most of those piano, I think all of them, all the keyboard stuff, Hallways is a combination of Jordy and I sitting at the same time at the same piano. It was like a duel. But the others are me playing piano, but it's primitive, the basic like ideas, kind of Nilsson-y, I guess, where it's just like the bass on the left and the chords on the right. And, but, with the synth stuff, Evan was like stepped up for sure, 'cause he's like a real kind of the synth guy. And so he put a lot of, and Jordy was also really involved in that too. And then I was also involved in it, but it was just a way to like, I don't know, just I don't know.
No, it's fine. but song wise, there just seems to be, you seem to be having a slightly better time in a lot of the stuff than maybe you were having in the previous 2 records.
Yeah.
Like you seem like you're in a, like it just seems like there's more playfulness, there's more wit.
Yeah. And one of my favorite songs from Taste is a song called Carried Away, which we wanted to make, let's make an electronic song, but I'm going to play harmonica and acoustic guitar. And so it will feel kind of organic and natural, but it will have this pulse that feels very synthesizer, drum machine kind of thing, but with these organic elements. Mm-hmm. And it was it was to try to be playful, like bring a tap dancer in and like, let's enjoy being back in a studio.
Yeah. So the 2 records come out. You tour the
Dead
records.
on Arrival. Just kidding.
Stop. You put them out, 2 albums. You hit the road, and then at some point, something's telling you that we're at the end of the line for Islands.
Oof, yeah. I know exactly where I was. I was at a gas station. I took a picture of Adam and Evan. A really nice photo. The sun was setting and it looked really beautiful. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of it. It does not feel like there's any gas left.
Okay.
And I was also trying new things. I was out in LA and I was like, we played these shows in December of that year, 2016, 10-year anniversary of the first record. So it was this 10-year, it felt like a nice 10-year circle. It felt like a nice bow. And I was like, I had this plan. I had this production in Canada. I was like in pre-production on directing a feature at like, I was pitching with my friend on a thing, and it just all seemed like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this now, and this is my new thing. I'm gonna just put a down payment on a Tesla, and that's what's gonna happen. And then none of this is, it all kind of dissolved. All of these things I'd been working on.
But you did make a short film.
I did.
That Dog, which is great.
Thanks.
You wrote and directed.
Correct, yeah.
And you were working with a bunch of other people and all sorts of things, maybe sometimes in supervisory positions, mentoring positions a little bit over the last bunch of years, right?
A little bit.
Is that fair to say?
With one thing for a day or two, just like, yeah. I was just figuring out what's the long tail of what my position is, and I still don't really know, but
at some point Islands did not seem like it was on the front burner.
Yeah, it was like that thing, you shoot the guy in the house, you think he's dead, and you go back to the kitchen, you make the grilled cheese, and then you go back and the body's not there anymore. It's like, oh, he's not dead. Should have made sure he was dead.
Yeah. So, but it seemed like it seemed like whatever the future is, Islands are not going to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was definitely.
So when did that change?
2019, February, January or so. I went in for this session with this kid and who was twice my age or half my age, and was playing bass on a thing and helping him with the song, and just like, God, this is so fun and I love it. And then I started writing songs started coming out. I was like, okay, what is this? I'm going to go into a studio with Chris Cody. It was a 10-year anniversary of Vapors. And the last time I'd worked with a producer, it was with Chris Cody, this great producer who'd made a bunch of great records. And I just started there, and then I just let it decide what it was. I wasn't like, I'm going to make another record. I'm going to book 2 weeks at a studio. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. I was like, let's go slow. Let's do everything. It's like George Costanza style. It's like, I'm going to do the opposite of everything I did before.
Okay.
See what happens. Like, I'm going to say no to this, yes to this, when I would say yes to that and no to that. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to let it breathe and let it find what it wants to be. And that's sort of how it started happening.
Okay. And at some point you said to yourself, I guess islands are back.
I guess islands are forever. Yeah. I guess that, yeah, it was probably a couple months in. Mike from Rat-a-Tat was in town in LA, and I asked him to come play on the song I was recording at Chris Cody at Sunset Sound, which I was like, oh, it'll be fun. Go to Sunset Sound, like sing into the, U47 that Tom Petty sang into at Full Moon Fever. Like that's worth.
Oh yeah.
That's worth $10,000. Great.
I mean, that's where Prince
we used his echo. We used his reverb, EM 140, or we used the gear from all that stuff. And so you're like, oh, I'm like connecting with the past, and it feels a little bit like it's like what lawyers like to do. Like they just have money and they're like, I love Prince. I'm going to record at Prince with Prince's stuff. So it felt a little like dilettante-esque, but I started there. I was like, let's just see how this feels. Like, let's get inspired. And then Mike was like, come to the Catskills and record with me. So I went to the Catskills and made a song with him. And then it started to feel like, okay, this feels like this could be the return. And it's also, these songs were neither angry nor sad. Those two things I would vacillate between, both were miserable. But I was like, what if when I come back, I'm happy? What if I'm exuberant even? Mm-hmm. What if this is a celebration of goodness?
And this became the new album.
This became Islomania.
Which, the release date, do you know the release date of this one?
I do. It has not happened at this point. June 11th, 2021. Right.
And it's such a great record, and it really does feel like the 7 records that preceded it led to this record existing.
Yes.
It really is. Everything that went into all 7 of those records are a part of this 8th record.
Yep. I would agree strongly with that. I couldn't have gotten here without going through all of that. Yeah.
And it's such a fun, it's a really good time record without being superficial or lacking substance. It's just so great. And it's so exciting to see that this is the record that you would bring the band back with.
Yeah. So I started it in February of 2019 and kept writing and slowly like chipping away. And then in the fall of that year, November of 2019, brought Evan and Jordy to LA. We rehearsed, and then we didn't even really rehearse. We just kind of jumped in, I think, to the studio. And so then it was like, okay, we're making an Islands record. It's official. And this was all obviously, this is 2019. It's like, okay, I guess. And I still had no plan. I knew I wanted a label. I didn't want to self-release anymore, but I didn't want to wait around and find someone. I wanted to just do it, show what I was doing. It's hard. Like, you have to sell yourself every time. And I want to just let the music speak for itself rather than try to tap dance, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so then, obviously COVID hits, and it was just like breaks, full breaks.
Yeah. But this is the perfect record for the post-vax era. It really is. And I'm not being not being a wise ass when I say that.
Yeah, no.
It's like a fun, connective record, and I really do think for this summer it's going to make a lot of sense, and the timing one way or another worked out just right for people to have something that feels like it is bringing them closer, not further apart.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's like Natural Law Party is like that's a straight up dance music. Like
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
like, you went all in on it.
Yeah.
Moving like an elephant, you make it seem so relevant. Oh, would you remember me? I'm not your enemy. I am unaware. Oh, we're running out of it.
It's just up and feels good. And when you listen to this record now, after all the stuff you've gone through to get to this point, what does this record feel like, and what does it mean to you?
It feels like maybe because I have distance from all the other records, but they're all beyond arm's length. And this one feels like it's the most right in your face. Like it's right binaural, like it's between my eyes, and it just pops. Like I wanted everything to be, I was like, if I'm coming back, I want to do it on my terms. I don't want to do a 2-week rush job, 3-week rush job. I want to take a year. I want to take 2 years. I want to find the best mixer for it. I want to find the best mastering person for it. And I want it to kind of smack you in the face. And I want to think about rhythm too. Something I'd never really been totally like starting there. And so a lot of those songs, closed captioning, and Natural Law Party, especially, like building off of drum stuff, writing to a rhythm, writing to a beat. And one of the Natural Law Party, I sampled this Arthur Russell thing and then recreated the beat and was like, oh, that's fine. It's different enough. And then my publishing people who also represent Arthur Russell were like, oh, this guy Ben, he's great. He loves you, actually, loves Best Show. But he was like, oh, that's Arthur Russell. It's this old disco band he had, and he clocked it. And so we had to, but it was nice. I had to like get a permission and then share some credit. But now I get to write a song with Arthur Russell. So that was kind of nice.
It's amazing that like that Arthur Russell is somebody who is still, in the scheme of things, a mystery to me, where I know the music, and then you hear the range of things, and it's just the most incredible person that ever existed.
I relate to it. I aspire to that. To like, you can make a folk thing, you can make a classical thing, you can make a disco thing. Like there's no genre that you need to be beholden to. No,
and that is look, you can compare yourself or not compare yourself to whoever you want, but like in terms of intent and freedom, you are definitely pulling from the same well in terms of just being like, we're just going to go where we go.
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't tell me what it is or isn't or can or can't be. It's like, you just try it and you go there. If it makes sense, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. And that just feels like getting a chance to go through this 15 years of music that you've put together and these 8 albums. It really is, each one really does speak to the one before and after it. And it's really a very special body of work. And I was a fan before, but now I'm that much more impressed having done what I did to get ready for this.
Well, it's, it's so meaningful to hear you say that. Obviously, like, I respect you so deeply. So it makes me feel, it makes my soul like exhale a little bit. It's like, I feel like if someone like you gets it, what I'm doing, it makes me feel really like it wasn't all
but that's
a fuck around.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is like, and I know this sounds like some sort of Sammy Maudlin show we're doing here, but I swear it's like we are two friends having a conversation about the things that each friend makes, and it's like that's the best kind of friendship. And you and I are both very lucky. We have a pool of friends where everybody is creative and everybody pushes themselves, and it's a nice thing to have that as the people in your lives, where because it makes you feel validated when you do it. Yeah, and you've been doing it, so that's all. And the new album is outstanding, and I'm excited for people to hear it. And it's just such a great place, and I'm glad Islands are back, and I'm glad you're happy with where the band is at. And
I'm pleased,
and it's a good thing. And congratulations on your new album.
Thanks, Tom.
Is there anything about Islomania you want to say for people? Because I didn't go as deep into that one, just because it's new.
I think that's also nice. Like let's just let it be. Let's just let it exist for now, and we'll get the next 8. We'll catch it in the next 8.
Yeah. We'll get them on the back 8 now. The back 8. Oh, no.
Suddenly we're golfing.
Well, because you've talked about, and we're going to wrap it up now, but you've talked about how you look at this one as the first of 3 in its own way.
Yep.
And what will those next 2 be?
I have so this is the Saturday night record. I have the Sunday morning record. It's not a Monday morning record, but it's definitely a Sunday morning. It's settled, but it's hungover. There's some regret. There's some sadness. There's some darkness, but it's funny and playful, and it's more controlled. It's more similar process that I did, which is writing, demoing, almost like I'm making a rap beat, which when I was done with Islands, I was trying to do. I was like, I'm going to get into rap production. I know a few rappers that I like. Maybe I can make some beats for them. And some of these songs are the result of that. They feel like they're informed a little bit by that. So, but then the third record I'm still writing it, but I have a couple, I think it's almost all written, and it's great. And it's a little more raw and ragged.
Okay.
I think I need to get out of the box. I need to get live again. So that's what that'll be.
And what's the loose, if this is 2021, are we looking at one a year after this?
If it was up to me, the next one would come out early next year, early 2022. And it's called And That's Why Dolphins Lost Their Legs. And if it was up to me, that's the answer to this. So I hope that it does. But it's not always up to me. And then the third one, I don't know. Maybe the fall of that year. The thing is, I wish it didn't take so long. I would like to just release it at my discretion. Mm-hmm. But
well, I can say one thing is that I can't wait. And that sounds. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. God damn it.
Thank you to Devin Bryant for his work producing and editing this series, and thank you to everyone at Royal Mountain Records for their assistance. Islands are Nick Thorburn, Evan Gordon, Jordy Gordon, and Adam Halferty.